you yourself, let's start with how it got started. Why acting, and how did you get into the profession yourself?
Well, I started acting because I come from a bit of a creative family, and it was sort of the only way to get attention. So, gosh, that's actually immediately. I've gone in deep.
Okay, fine.
It's like I've turned this into a therapy session instead. Actually, it's because my mum never loved me.
Yeah, right.
It's not because my mum never loved me. It's that I come from a bit of a family of eccentrics, and so like storytelling and all of that sort of thing was a big part of our family ritual. And you kind of had to hold your own quite a lot in the family. And so, yeah, we all have a bit of a penchant for that kind of thing. So, yeah, so there was all of that. And then I just started to do drama at school. My drama teacher was like properly ambitious in terms of the kind of material she gave us. So I played Macbeth when I was 8. It was, a very edited version.
Right.
And yeah, I just kind of got the bit between my teeth and decided that that's what I wanted to do. And sort of toyed with doing other things alongside it. Like I wanted to be a vet at one point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an interior designer because of changing rooms and various other things. But then I was just like, okay, acting sort of stayed through. But I decided to go to university.
Was that a conscious decision because you wanted to further your craft, or was that a sort of a backup plan? What was the reasoning behind university initially?
It wasn't actually a backup plan. It was actually, although I think my parents were quite pleased that I got a degree.
Yeah, because you often hear that. You have some sort of, especially sort of in schools, people, they sell their children, go and do a degree and then go into acting, or, so I don't know if that was sort of.
Yeah, and I understand that argument, but for me, that wasn't why I went to uni. I went to uni because I was a bit of a kid, and I wasn't like ready to go to drama school yet. Like I didn't feel prepped enough as a human being to be able to go to drama school and get the best out of it.
So 3 years of drinking alcohol sort of prepped you a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready then. But also I chose a very practical course. So I learned like loads of dramas at university. I actually think I learned more at university than I did at drama school.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then I did a drama school master's for a year after uni, and then started working.
Okay. So for someone watching this now, and they've sort of got in their mind, they want to be an actor, they feel they've got the talent. What would be some of the steps they could take if they're really serious about doing this as a trade and getting into the industry?
I think you should just be really brave. Don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. Like, don't think about like looking cool or anything like that when you're in your drama lessons or whatever. Like, throw yourself into every exercise and experiment as much as you can.
Yeah.
And push yourself. So that's sort of a little bit of a sort of, I guess that's a bit of an airy fairy way to look at that question.
I mean, it makes sense. Like you sort of don't, because sometimes I imagine if you're going to an audition, or if you're in a play or a lesson or anything, if you hold back and you don't fully, that makes total sense. So
you should take, like, if you're in a classroom, you should take it as a classroom, right? It's not your audition. So like, take it as for what it's worth and just be unafraid to make a mistake is what I kind of think, because I think I was always really scared of making mistakes, and that actually really holds you back. Right. So
when you then go on from schools and you go into sort of the world of acting and you go to auditions and things, I mean, that must be a really intimidating moment. Do you find it intimidating? What sort of tips would you give to someone in that stage when they're going into the auditions, and what, I know some people turn up to auditions in character or not, or what?
I've never shown up in character.
Yeah.
But you should dress a little bit according to the character. Try and look like the character if you can.
Right.
But I remember my first audition, because I think you have these ideas of like what auditions are like, and you think of the panel and, you know, the stage with a spotlight on it and people
Big buzzers.
yeah, exactly. That's what you think of. You're like, oh. But actually, my first ever audition, I went to the casting director's house and sat with her dog, and then we read through something together, and it was like in her kitchen, and it was really friendly and low key, and that actually really scared me. I was like, oh god, you know, this is what I it just really threw me.
Did she set up like a golden buzzer in her house and sort of?
No buzzers though. There were no buzzers. It was really threw me for a loop. So so that audition process, it's sort of like I realized, I was like, oh, okay, this industry is actually completely different to sort of the image that I had in my mind.
Right.
And the main thing is to just be personable and open and nice to people, and and then really prepare your auditions to within an inch of their life. Well, that's what works for me. Some people don't need to prepare as much, but
in terms of preparation, what sort of preparation could they do? In terms of researching the role, or learning the lines, or what do you mean by prepare?
So I think it depends on the audition. So like if the play, then reading the play is the most important thing, because you have to have a real overview of what the piece is, and you'll have to talk to the director about your thoughts on the piece as a whole. You'll have to talk about the character a lot, and so you really need to be like quite prepped on that, and then you can be less prepped on the actual scenes themselves. You don't need to necessarily know your lines or anything like that. You need to sort of have an idea of how you're going to play it, but you don't need to be off book or anything. But for TV, it's the opposite. For TV, the scenes are the most important things. So like if you're sent like 5 TV scripts to read for an audition, you've got to, what I like to do is I like to look how many pages I've got to learn first. Sometimes you've got no time and you've got like 10 pages and you've got to learn it for the next day. So if it's a lot of material, I just get to learning straight away. And so it has more time.
Do you have a system for learning lines?
No, I just repetition, and I have to do it out loud. So like, I can't do it in a cafe or anything, because I'm like, like doing the whole thing. I can't do it on the bus. Like, I mean, I have been known to like mutter to myself. So just a lot of repetition for lines, and then I'll like read the script, and then I'll go back to the scenes and like work on choices and sort of try and make some good choices.
Yeah, I suppose like there is a lot of rejection, and you need to build up an element of resilience to that.
Yeah, it's just like part of the job, and you know it going in. You know, it's like it's the big thing that everyone's aware of, that you face loads of rejection. You're constantly doing job interviews and getting no's, which like most careers you don't have to do that for. You do develop quite a thick skin. I mean, I definitely went into it knowing I was going to get a lot of rejection, but it was hard at the beginning. But the best thing to do is just do your audition and then basically forget about it. So you invest as much as you can in the moment of your audition, in the one thing that you can control. And then as soon as you leave the room, just forget about it.
And you just have to be really strict with yourself. You have to say, you know, that's what the best I could do, and it's what will be.
What will be, will be. And I mean, look, that's easier said than done. There are times where you're like, okay, but, and you think about it.
I'm over it, really.
So, yeah. So, and I also, sometimes the ones that I really care about, I try not to tell people that I'm auditioning for those projects.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because I don't want people to ask me. I don't want people to go, have you heard about that thing? Because I don't want to be thinking about it. I want to be like just moving on.
Next. Yeah.
Next. Yeah.
So, okay, well, remind me not to ask you about any of it.
Never ask.
Never speak to me. So let's say, for example, you've got a role, you've got a job, and you've like your career, Zoe, like having followed you for quite a while, you've done such an eclectic mix of characters, both on stage and screen, and the variation, you know, from you know, Witless to Downton to Sons of Anarchy, like there's such a wide range of different roles you've done. How do you prepare for a role?
when I did Downton Abbey, I went in deep. So it was set in 1917, that series was. And there was a lot of material about World War One. And I was like, research. I could basically do a PhD on World War. And I probably took it a little bit too far. But, you know, it was really interesting. So, like, that's quite a fun thing to be able to do, that you can research things. For Sons of Anarchy, I had no time. I got the job on a Thursday. I was in London and they said, you're on set on Monday in Los Angeles and you've got to fly over and find a place to live and get yourself together.
Yeah.
So that was very...
but also two completely different parts.
Completely different parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so different. I mean, I also had to learn a Belfast accent.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Never that successful at it.
How are your accents? Don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, don't. My American's quite good. I'm quite happy with my American. I've had to do it quite a lot. So that's quite good.
How do you learn an accent? Is there like, do you do that at drama school or did you do that at university or do you do it, do you self-teach? I mean, how do people learn accents?
Yeah, you do do it at drama school. I didn't do it at my drama school, but you do learn things in a really like technical way at drama school. Like there's a sort of a phonetic language, alphabet that you can use. And it's very, very detailed and complex, but I never did that. I just think you learn by doing it, because actually I thought I had an amazing American accent at the start of my career and I kept getting like cast as Americans, and I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, that was awful. I can't believe I
really over the top American accent.
Just kind of, I don't know, it was just like really bad. Actually, that was teaching my own flute.
But that must be that's quite interesting though. So like as an actor, you've been doing it for a while now. And do you ever look back? That is quite interesting. Like, do you ever look back at performances and think, oh God, that really wasn't good? Yeah.
All the time. But also like even immediately after, like I can't bear watching myself. So like I'm getting slightly more used to it now because I'm like, okay, yes, that is my face and that is my voice. Like, I've accepted that's who I am.
That is me. Yeah.
So that element of it, I've got over. But like, you're always head in hands, like, oh God, this is awful. And then especially when you're watching the TV and your bit's coming up, you're sort of like, oh, like waiting for it to come up. I'm like really scared.
So Zoe, you just got me thinking about something you said to me before we started filming, and I don't know if you want to share it, but the facial reaction when you were working with CGI.
I was shooting this thing and it was a very sort of bloody, gory, historical drama.
Okay.
And they did describe to me what I was looking at in this shot, but I never got to see the thing. Like I had to just sort of feign a reaction to something that I never got to see. And I basically like turned a corner and was supposed to see this horrific thing and react. And my facial expression was basically like just wild shock. And then when it aired, I saw what I was supposed to have seen. And it was like this gory, bloody, like devastation. My reaction was literally like non-committal. So I can't actually believe that they used it because it was like, oh no.
So people watching that think, well, she didn't react. She didn't really react very well to that. Or maybe your character was just really not that scared.
It's quite a tough cookie, it's just it's a choice.
It's great. So in terms of preparation for roles, you said like with Downton, you did a lot of research, and then with other roles, you sort of get told quite quickly that you've got to do it. So let's find a middle ground. If you were to get a role now, what would your sort of process be?
I figure out the tone of the script. That's the main one. So like if it's a comedy, it's like, okay, I want to nail the beats of the comedy. So I like. For comedy work, I'll like go to the script and I will rehearse on my own, like before we get to work, to sort of figure out my delivery and like try and wrangle the lines and like try and do that, because you get so little time when you get to work. Like when you get to shooting, there's no rehearsal or anything like that. So you've got to be like really prepped.
So so the people don't rehearse in television as much as they would in theatre at all?
Not usually. In comedy, you do get a bit of rehearsal because they obviously want to nail the jokes. But like generally, no. In Downton Abbey, you got no rehearsal. And like you would do a line run, you go through the scene once, you'd get blocked and like put around the space. And then you might do 1 or 2 takes. And then like that's it. And then you do but you do it over and over again because they've got to cover lots of different parts of the scene. But your coverage, so your shot, you would do in 1 or 2 takes.
What would you say were the sort of challenges of being an actor? If someone was coming into the industry and you could say, right, listen, I've been there, I can tell you some things. Some of the challenges you're going to face are, what might they be?
The worst one is the uncertainty of it. So like just not knowing where your next job is coming from. That is definitely the thing that you've got to get used to. And like, I think I've been doing this for like 13 years and I'm still not used to it. I'm still like, I mean, I'm used to it, but I still hate it. Like,
I think you just don't know when the next job might be or could be or what it could be.
You're just like, and apparently I've seen a lot of interviews of like actors like George Clooney saying stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think that ever really goes away, no matter what your level is, because, as you move forward in your career, you might say you have an element of choice. So you might say no to jobs that you would have done 10 years ago, but you don't really do them at this point in your career. So you do have an element of that control, but like, you still want to be moving forward and progressing, and you actually have no control over the linear progression of your career. That's the hardest thing.
That must be quite scary.
Yeah, exactly. It's also the bonus of the career is that you're not at a desk 9 to 5, doing like data entry stuff or whatever.
In other interviews, I've asked a similar question, and it really interests me sort of how people in their work and around their practice, whatever industry it is they work in, how they cope and help with their, not just their physical health, but what they do for their mental health. So is there anything in particular you do to look after your mental health as an actor, but also as a person?
Yeah. As an actor, you do actually have to work on your mental health quite hard because you face all this rejection and stuff, and because there's no job security and all of the above. So the thing that works best for me is exercise, and which is known to be an antidepressant anyway.
Yeah.
But it's also a really good way to give your day structure and like get yourself out the house and engaging with something else. And it's really good at switching your brain off. So it's like you're just not in your head about your work and stuff. I find that really helpful. And I also have a rule that I never watch TV in the day when I'm unemployed.
More because you're not being creative, because you don't want to stop.
I don't want to stop. And so like in the day, if I do have some free time, I would rather do something constructive and read a book or like go to a matinee or something like that, that sort of like builds me up as a human being rather than switching my brain off by watching some TV.
Yeah. It's really easy trap to sort of fall into, sort of wake up, not dress, not wash, watch TV. And I think especially for people who work in an industry which is quite sort of for any freelancer really, to be in that, you've got to be careful that you don't get into that trap of sort of I really appreciate that. So exercise helps your mental health. Is there a particular exercise you do?
Well, I love spin.
Okay.
I love spin classes, and I do classes too. So bar is like ballet bar. It's lovely. It's very good, very centering. I don't like yoga. Yoga makes me angry.
What about yoga makes you angry? I mean,
I just hate that downward dog. I absolutely hate it. Like I hate the blood rushing to my head, and it just winds me up.
I think you're the first person I ever spoke to who finds that yoga makes them angry.
No, bad, isn't it?
So Zoe, to finish, what 3, or let's say 2 or 3 top tips would you give to somebody that wants to work in the creative industry?
Okay. Do they have to be like short answers?
Yes. Takeaways. 2 or 3 takeaways.
play. Be unafraid to make a fool of yourself, and be kind to people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Zoe, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, and we should hopefully see you soon.
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye.
Bye.
Please do subscribe. The Online Theatre School has lots of lessons coming your way, as well as interviews with people from film, theatre and television. See you soon.